Look, let's get straight into it because I have not one stock of the day, but two. They're actually related. I thought we'd get the guys' view on Ampol and Viva Energy. They top our watch list today. The Morrison government, of course, committing $2.3 billion to ensure at least 2 oil refineries are backing Australia's sovereign fuel production capability. On the back of the commitment, Ampol saying little will run until 2027, backed by annual payments well over $100 million to get it through time periods of low refining margins. And Viva Energy also committing to operate its Geelong refinery at least until 2027 with aid from a number of government initiatives, including a fuel security service payment. Now, the company expects to receive about $40 million in payments through to June 30 this year. And Rob Corlett, that's not a bad fill-up for both Viva and Ampol, is it? The government, of course, sort of tending to secure assets for security reasons now.
Yeah, well, the market's obviously quite liked it. It's up 6 and 8% respectively.
Right.
Look, I think we had about 6 refineries at one stage. We're down to 2.
Yeah.
The actual deal is that the government will give them 1.8 cents per litre, which works out to be about $2.90 a barrel in subsidy payments, if the margin they're making on that barrel is $7.30 or below. All the way up to if they're making $10.20 per barrel in margin, at that point in time the subsidy would cut out. So effectively what it means is if they're making $10.20 or less prior to this announcement, they're now going to make a minimum margin of $10.20.
Okay.
Which is why obviously the stocks are up on that. Look, they've also got another contribution plan. So if for every dollar the company wants to spend in CapEx, the government will match that dollar up to 125 million total donation. So combined, they can actually do a $250 million CapEx spend and only have to pay half of it. And not surprisingly, they've both come out and said, yeah, that's about what we're going to be spending. So, yeah, 125 million each for the government. Look, out of the two companies, we're actually preferring Viva Energy. We think it's slightly better positioned. It's already working on a low sulphur LNG project. So, yeah, of the two, that would be our favourite. But right now, Koshy, where the share prices are after today's movement, I think you'd be selling the news and waiting for everything to settle down.
You wouldn't be buying them at this price?
No, I wouldn't be buying
selling them and look to...
yeah, potentially buy back into maybe Viva Energy on a pullback. Not as interested in Ampol. Look, I think both of them have already shown today that they've started to come off their highs and are below the opening price. So it's one of those things, most of the time you want to sell early and then just wait for the heat to come out and see where it settles. I think Aristocrat had a similar kind of announcement today. It was up 8%, 10%, spiked right over $40 and now it's under 39. So similar thing will probably play out with Ampol and Viva Energy today.
All right, Owen, what do you think of Viva and Ampol on the back of this news?
I think I came on the show not too long ago to talk about Viva, and I know I've done the rounds with Ampol before as well. I think, you know, bigger picture, if we just step back for a moment, we love these short-term catalysts if we're shareholders, but how did it get this way? And the question is, you know, is it sustainable? And as a long-term investor myself, if I'm looking to own these companies for 5 or 10 years, am I sure that, you know, that the margins are sustainable? And to be honest, the answer that I have to come back to with both of the companies is no. I don't know. And the fact is that we're getting a lot of cheap imports. I think this is a great move. I think when we spoke about this last time, we said that this would probably be the outcome. I think this is a great move for consumers, for businesses, for our country, and just from a national security perspective as well. But as investors, you know, we don't have to own everything in the market. So for me, I actually prefer Ampol of the two businesses, but I'm not in a rush to buy either of them right now.
Right. Would you be doing like Rob if you've been sort of a long-term investor in them and you've seen this little spike up? Would you take some profits?
I probably would, Koshy, to be honest. Yeah, I probably would, because I think if you're looking for yield, I think there are other emerging companies, and even, you know, the banks are looking pretty good right now. So I think there are other places to get yield. So that would be the primary reason I buy them. But for me, it's a bit of a pass.
It is really interesting how the government's being involved in this, Rob, isn't it? Because you just look at the cyber attack on that oil pipeline in the US that's created shortages of fuel suppliers in the US, both jet fuel as well, which is important. Governments are now honing in on these, if you like, national security industries to make sure they're viable, aren't they? And maybe we could get a lot more of that.
Yeah, look, I think it's all a matter of the government trying to start the stimulus of the economy, making sure that there's always going to be supply of, these core products that we need. Yeah,
absolutely. It's fascinating. All right, globalisation is sort of now starting to come back a bit as everyone goes, oh, globalisation is good, except if you trust the people as part of the globe. And when you don't, you want to have those fundamental industries under control.